Operations Director. So basically today we're going to talk about in-app events and also retargeting. Initially we're going to talk about the in-app events. So in-app events is basically the actions which happen within your app that you want to measure. So obviously when you get an install, that could be classed as an event. It's the first and the most important event. But after the install, you want to be able to track and measure exactly what the users are doing within your app. And there's loads of different reasons for that, which we're going to get into, okay? So the basics, as I've said, you've got the install and you've got the acquisition, and then you've got the cost. So how much is it going to cost to actually get your installs? And then you've got the KPI. So you're going to talk here, you're going to look at, you know, what exactly is your split, how many organics, how many non-organics, your CPI, etc. A lot of the time I work with lots of different types of clients and marketers, and sometimes they come to us and they say that they want to be able to measure their installs, but they're not actually sure what they want to do after that. And we say to them, what is it you want to achieve? You know, is it market share? Is it, do you want subscriptions? Is it purchases? Is it revenue? And these are all really important because you need to know this before you actually set up and start tracking your in-app events. So let's have a look at the next. One of them as well is engagement. So engagement within your app is really important, especially for like gaming clients. So how often users are coming back into your app, and those users, for example, may be viewing ads and engaging with the ads within the app. And also the in-app events that you set up as well will be able to track, DAU, MAUs, retention, uninstalls, etc. And then the final one could be, for example, is the final goal is a purchase. So it's not just a purchase, so is it? It could be a first-time purchase. You want to get as many first-time purchases. It could be repeat purchases. It could be the amount of revenue that you get from the purchases as well. And within those purchases as well, you've got like the basket size. You want to be able to track the average revenue per user. The first week conversion rate. A lot of the time the conversion rate is really important. Like, is it happening within the first day, or is it happening further down the funnel? I mean, a lot of the importance of event tracking is converting the users into paying customers. It's getting customers who are engaged and want to come back into your app, whether it's to buy something, play a game, or use a function. And the key part of this is understanding which events you want to measure, which is important to you. And basically for you to be able to set a really simple, basic level that this install drove this many purchases and this much revenue is just like one really basic example. So when you're looking at before you actually go live, you want to think about, how am I going to tag these events? What am I actually looking at? What are the key actions inside the app? And these are like fundamental questions. I mean, for example, we've already discussed, is it a purchase? Is it somebody adding to basket? Is it somebody buying coins to play a game? And also then, how do I want to segment those users? How am I going to be able to use this data? Because basically the events that you create are going to be able for you to be able to create a segment or an audience of users who've done certain actions, and then you can utilize this and you'll be able to use it later, where I'll talk about in retargeting. It's really important that you get this set up, you get all the data, and then you can use that data later when you want to retarget these users, okay? One of the verticals which we can look at, in fact, is a travel. I mean, unfortunately, travel's not doing very well at the moment, but some of the in-app events is, as you can imagine, like hotel, flight search, logins, checkouts, etc. And you want to be able to know exactly that these users who've installed your app that you may have spent X amount of money on are actually going to make a flight booking, And also you want to be able to measure that, because you want to be able to send it to a partner so they can then optimize towards that event, for example. Some of you may work on CPI, some of you may work on CPA, but if you're working on a CPA basis, where you're only paying a partner when a user's conducted a checkout, then this is really important. What's also important is what we call rich in-app event data. So this is sometimes classed as like metadata. So for example, if someone's making a booking, so that's an event in itself, but what actually is that booking made up of? So it could contain all kinds of user level information, like the flight, the class, the destination, the revenue amount, obviously really important. It could be even a custom user ID, an ID which is relevant to you, and where you can use that to match back to the user who's potentially already made a booking in the past on the web, for example. But what's also really important here is this rich in-app event data is what you can potentially utilize and send to a partner. And that could be a partner like Facebook, like Snap, like Google. And we'll get into that in a little bit, actually. Another big vertical is gaming. Gaming, depending, and you get like mid-core, hyper-casual types of gaming. So hyper-casual gaming isn't necessarily always about purchasing. It isn't people buying coins or getting access to extra levels. Hyper-casual gaming clients actually make money from the ads which they display and in their app, and then the users who actually view those ads and then go on and do other actions. So important to them can be things like how far they're getting within the game, retention rates, and also are they sharing this with other users? Are they sending invites? Are they claiming bonuses? And also the tutorial. This is important for marketers. Sometimes clients get a little bit, I must say, confused, but like with product analytics, you don't need, for a marketer doesn't need to track, to measure every tiny little event within the app. We're not looking to see necessarily about the functionality of the app. I mean, hopefully that's already been discussed. You know what's working, what isn't. I mean, it will give you some extra insights, but what we want to know here is, what we want to be able to collect is the actions that the users are doing and being able to send that to a partner, but also for you to be able to use the analytics that you've got to be able to see, look, I spent 10 grand, I got X amount of users, and then out of these users, X amount of them actually ended up making a purchase, or X amount of them viewed so many ads, or X amount of them achieved a certain level. So again, like I was explaining on the travel one, the metadata, the rich in-app event. So for example, it's the purchase type, it's the revenue, registration method as well. So for a lot of gaming clients, when you initially download the app and you get access, like how are you registering? Is it email? Is it by Facebook? Again, that could be important in terms of how you're going to optimize and the kind of partners you want to work with. Again, the customer user ID. This is an ID which is relevant to you only, and you can pass this as well. You can pass it back into your own BI, or you can potentially share it with a partner as well. E-commerce. So it's really, really important for e-commerce clients to try and get as many events as possible which are relevant to them. Purchase, obviously, but checkout, cart, etc. The cart in particular is really an important one, because if you're actually tracking and knowing that a user's added to cart certain items, then you're going to be able to retarget them later, potentially with that item in the cart. So that's really key. Another one is the completed purchase, the content search as well, like what exactly are these users looking for. Add to wish list. Again, are they looking at, are they adding to wish list as a certain items which they're interested in? and again, and also login and registration. And within all of these events, like we've already discussed, you've got the metadata, the rich in-app event data. So, I mean, we've all probably been retargeted. We've all looked at maybe a pair of trainers in an app. We've been interested in that, but then we've decided not to proceed any further. And then within, I don't know, within an hour, maybe even less than that, we've gone onto our email and we've seen a banner ad and it's showing exactly the same pair of trainers that we were looking at previously. And this is because of these marketers are using the data and sending this to partners who in turn are then targeting you and know that you've looked and put that in your basket. Okay, let's look at the next slide. I'm going to talk a little bit more now about retargeting in particular, and we've got some kind of analysis here as well that we've done previously with clients who are using retargeting. So, I mean, we can see here, this is app retention rates, and it's a year-on-year comparison. Day one, as you would expect, when people are most engaged, but you know, by day 7 and then day 30, it's dropped off massively. So, I mean, this is what we see across nearly all verticals. It's really hard to, you know, and it's expensive to keep acquiring users. So, a really good way of you know, of using of the users that you've already got, the installs that you've got, is to basically apply some retargeting. We also need to think about as well, like, when do you want to retarget these users? Are we looking at retargeting them within the first 24 hours when they're most engaged? Not necessarily. I mean, we can re-engage with them in lots of different ways, but the idea is that we want to do it in a consistent manner. We want to do it in a way which is sustainable, and we also want to do it in a way which is relevant as well, and also use specific creatives. We did some analysis as well, and we've looked at retargeting performance by category. You can see that by far and away where this has been most successfully applied is by the e-commerce shopping types of apps. And I think one of the reasons why it is because there's some really good platforms which can utilize in-app event data, and it can also combine this with other examples. For example, like Facebook, you can have like content feeds, and you can combine that with the in-app event data. So, for example, a user's going to be able to see, for example, they looked at some items in like clothing, and then they're going to see like a carousel ad, for example, on Facebook, which is going to show them all the different types of items that they were looking at. Food and drink as well, it's another good one. You know, like delivery types of apps, food delivery. Again, they really understand and can optimize towards certain types of users. They're using the data that they've got, and then they can target them positively. This is just, again, it's just another example of how basically, you know, year-on-year revenue increase. You can see, I mean, it's quite obvious that apps which are running retargeting are a lot more successful and increase on the income compared to those that don't. Shopping, as you imagine, is near the top, and travel as well. I mean, travel, I guess, is probably because a lot of people, when they do travel, it's not an impulse type of purchase. Travel is usually something where you're doing a lot of investigation. You're going onto various different platforms. You're looking at lots of different offers, lots of different destinations. But there's also as well, like the marketers who are working in travel know that there's probably a sweet spot around the time of when the user's probably going to actually make that final decision. So if you can work with a partner, send this partner specific data, like they've looked at a certain destination, they have a certain budget, again with flights. And then if you can target them with a relevant type of message at the right time, then you've got a really good chance of actually converting that user. And here we're looking at the average revenue per paid user. This is obviously really important for gaming, where you can see that is the percentage uplift versus retargeting, non-retargeting is huge. And then again, we've got lifestyle, travel and shopping are right up there near the top. We have AppsFlyer has a performance index, so this comes out usually approximately every 6 months, I believe. We've just had one that's come out in the last few weeks. It's our 10th edition, and basically here we split out all the different verticals, regions, which networks are most used and the most efficient. We've also got iOS versus Android. It's a really good tool. For example, if you're an e-commerce app looking to expand in the US, find the best partners to use. And for here, for example, these are the retargeting networks and the top 3. And we're going to dive a little bit deeper into these 3 in particular, actually. So Facebook, it's a great platform for retargeting. You can combine all the events, including the rich in-app event data, which we've already talked about. For example, a specific pair of trainers someone left in the basket, you send this to Facebook. You can also enrich it with your product feed, content feed as well. And this will automatically use images and details from your catalog for items that you'd like to advertise. There's a couple of ways of working with Facebook. I mean, you can send them the data and they will use all the data and they can create an audience. They can create lookalike audiences. But there's other ways as well. You could create your own audience. You could segment your own users. So you could send to Facebook, for example, you could send a list of users who've done certain actions and not completed certain actions. So, for example, a user who's installed but maybe not completed a final purchase. It could be users who've done other similar types of actions but have not completed the final conversion. Users who've been active, who've been searching. You can send this to Facebook and they can target. You can also, you can create lists of users who you don't want to target as well to be more efficient. Google as well is obviously a huge, they've got huge reach. They've got all different types of content to reach users as well. So they've got search, display, video. Video ad in particular seems to work really well for retargeting. With all of these partners, the more data you send, the more efficient they can be. They've got algorithms. They can find the users who've installed and then re-engage with them depending on what your KPI is. So you, for example, may say, I want to optimize towards certain users who've purchased over a certain amount, or you may be that you want to target users who've achieved a certain level within your platform as well. The idea is that when you're using like an MMP, like AppsFlyer, for example, you've got all of this data. There's no point you keeping this data. The idea is that you send the data to these partners and then you let them do all the hard work for you. They've got algorithms. They know what they're doing. It doesn't always work straight away. Sometimes people expect like amazing results straight away, but the idea is that the more data you feed them, the longer that you continue, they'll eventually hit their sweet spot, and then they'll start to get into the rhythm. They'll start to be able to convert these users and actually drive more conversions for you, and hopefully, ideally, that'll convert into revenue. Criteo. So Criteo is a well-known retargeting partner of ours. Again, they're quite well known. they're probably more well known by what we classify as maybe more the experts. They're really good at being able to find users who've done against certain actions and who've not. They work across web as well, but they also obviously work in app. You send them enriched in-app event data, and again, it's a case of them being able to target this. What's important as well is the when you're thinking about working with these partners, is the context of when it's delivered. Too much too soon. If you're bombarding users with a lot of ads straight after they've installed, it isn't necessarily going to be very positive. These partners know exactly how to do this. So again, like I said before, you let them do the hard work. Do you want them to be able to just target users who have engaged within like a certain time frame, or would you prefer that they target them over a longer period of time? A lot of marketers, they obviously consider all the paid options, so there's thousands of different paid partners you can work with, but they don't always consider that they've got, you know, your own media. And own media is, I mean, you know, for example, push. You can retarget users with push notifications, and when you target them, you want to be able to track and optimize as well. So again, you can include within the push payload certain parameters. So this is available. If you don't want to do it yourself, maybe you don't have the technology to do that, there's lots of partners who can do this for you. And again, they can also then optimize and target for you. So Braze, Urban Airship are a couple of ones which are quite popular. You also got your CRM data, so perhaps you maybe want to retarget users using, you know, Salesforce, Oracle, Adobe. You might want to send them email campaigns. Again, you've got all of this access. You know all your users probably better than they do in some instances. So it's free, you know. So it's really valuable way of re-engaging with your users. Okay, this yeah, I've got to laugh. I don't know why that guy's got his thumb up there. I don't even know who he is. Oh, it's John Louis Salon. Oh, okay, yeah, he's got a well-known app. Yeah, John Louis. Anyhow, yeah, I digress. Basically, it's not just about who you use, but also who you use with. So actually, it can be a mix. And I've worked with some clients, and we've done studies with clients where we found that the marketing mix can actually help. It actually creates more of an uplift. So on a really simple level, for example, you could just use Facebook, or you could just use Snap, for example, for UA. But then for retargeting, maybe you'll just use Facebook on its own, and maybe the retargeting is successful. You see like a 6-7% uplift, which is good. But then maybe you're using another partner as well, Google, and what we actually find is maybe they actually complement each other. And you've just got to be conscious about how you do this. I mean, one of the ways of looking at it as well is, you know, it's not that straightforward. It can be trial and error. You know, these partners, Facebook, Google, Snap, and Twitter, they don't communicate with each other. They're not telling each other how successful they're being. They're not telling each other that they've targeted these users. But when you use an M&P like AppsFlyer, they're telling us, and we've got the data, we've got the analysis and the analytics to be able to make comparisons between them, but not just the comparisons between them, but also to show that how one is complementing the other. So, for example, somebody viewing an ad on Facebook, and then a day later, maybe they view another ad, and this time it's on Google, this time that they convert, and then compare this with a user who just saw the ad on Facebook, and then that user maybe converted maybe a week later. So you've got lots and lots of data, lots and lots of analysis that you can look at when you're using like an MMP in particular, and you can analyze and work out exactly the kind of media mix. Let me just go back. Oh yeah, John Lewis, he's got a nice new newsletter there. Yeah, and again, this is more about your own media. It's also thinking about the type of, it's not just about who you target, where you target them, when you target them, but it's also how, like the relevant, like the content, because there's no point retargeting user necessarily showing them a pair of trainers which you've already looked at. I mean, yeah, you've seen a pair of trainers, cool, okay, but why would I want to go back and buy that pair of trainers? Maybe there's been a discount applied. Maybe there's something which is similar to that pair of trainers. So, for example, they know you've looked at that pair of trainers, so maybe this other pair of trainers, which is very similar, might be of interest as well. So you've got to really consider that when you retarget these users, that you're actually providing them with something which is really relevant and which is actually going to encourage them to come back and take a look. It's not just about bombarding users with multiple ads in the hope blindly that they're going to come back, because there is going to be a saturation point, in fact. And we've seen this in studies, that it gets to a point where, in fact, it could even be negative, that a user seeing the same ad or similar types of ads is not necessarily going to convert. And it's also just about efficiency as well. I mean, you want to be efficient, and you want to be efficient in who you're targeting. Again, one other final thing is uninstalls. Why would you want to target users who've uninstalled your app? Again, if you can measure that, we can track that, the uninstalls. And again, you could potentially send that data to partners like Facebook, and then they won't target users who've uninstalled. Or maybe you do want to target users who've uninstalled. Maybe you know that those ones who've uninstalled were really spending a lot of money. So it's really important to you that you try and acquire those users back. Okay, well, I'm pretty sure the next slide is the final slide. So I've done pretty well. I think I've talked for like half an hour. Probably repeated myself quite a few times, but I believe we're going to do a Q&A session now. So we're going to see how that goes down. So hopefully James is going to come back.
Great. Yeah, we've got a few questions in here, and if anyone has any more, then chuck them in the Q&A box and we'll cover them now. Someone's asking, how many events do you think you should be tracking?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, I mean, it's really dependent on the app and the kind of vertical. I mean, I think out of the box, when you first get going, I would consider around, at least 5 to 10 events. I don't really think you need many more than that. I think sometimes I've seen clients who have an overload of events. I mean, I'm talking like hundreds. And I think sometimes they get a little bit confused, and they maybe not necessarily it's their fault, but they're viewing it more in terms of product analytics. So they want to be able to measure that users have, maybe they're dropping off because the logging process isn't very good. That isn't kind of the aim of what we're looking at here. What we're looking at is the in-app events, which are important to you, that you want to be able to measure and be able to send to partners. Okay.
Got it. And someone's asking, how will Facebook changes to view through install data affect the way you report these installs on the dashboard or API? And what's the best strategy for marketers to navigate this?
That's a good question. That's quite irrelevant. I wonder who asked that. Yeah, so I don't know if people are aware, but basically Facebook, obviously there's changes with all of the partners, in fact, and it's not just Facebook, in terms of how they share data with partners. And we're talking here more specifically like user level data, and user level data is data which contains things like advertising IDs and stuff like that. Look, in terms of retargeting, there isn't really, I mean, because this is what we're talking about, there isn't really much impact here. We still receive this data, and the clients will also still receive data as well. Some of it will be in an aggregated format, and not necessarily at user level for view through, but in terms of a client working with Facebook and want to be able to optimize towards certain users, then there won't be any impact. I don't really see the relevancy. Okay.
Okay, and Naveen is asking, what's the one link for Criteo? Is it a tag that needs to be created and shared?
Yeah, one link is it's a link that is created on the AppsFlyer platform. So it's a URL. It's a measurement URL, and that URL will then be supplied to, for example, with Criteo. With partners like Facebook and Google, links don't need to be used. It's a server-to-server integration. But for partners outside of those big ones, then yeah, you create a link and you supply it to them.
And Eleanor is asking, do you recommend integrating the Facebook SDK for UA there and transfer the data to AppsFlyer for analysis, or can the AppsFlyer SDK substitute for the Facebook SDK completely for UA?
Yeah, it's a good question. So Facebook, the integration we have with Facebook works really simplistically in this way. We send install data to them, for example, and then they respond and tell us exactly who is installed. And it's kind of similar for retargeting. In terms of them wanting to integrate, so you don't have to integrate the Facebook SDK. There is certain specific functionality within the Facebook SDK that you may want, such as like people log in with Facebook, for example. But I'm sure Facebook would agree, because I've spoken with Facebook, that you don't need the Facebook SDK to do user acquisition. They don't need to send us data. The idea is that we send them event data, they utilize this data, and then they can optimize. And so basically you'll be able to view all the Facebook data on the Facebook platform, but you'll also be able to see that on our side as well. We've got some documentation as well. If you go on the AppsFlyer support site, there's some more details exactly about the Facebook SDK and why you may or may not need it.
A couple of people in the chat, Naveen, who works at Facebook, is saying, yeah, both SDKs work hand in hand, smiley face. And Dobromir is agreeing with that. So, yeah. And Udi wants to know a bit more about how AppsFlyer is integrated with Google Ads and how you're sort of, by the sounds of it, passing data back and forth.
Yeah, so Google is very similar to Facebook. We have a server-to-server integration. It's with the Google Ads UAC. We send them installs, for example. They respond and tell us which users from which campaigns have installed, and the same with retargeting. There's no you set up the conversion event within within the Google AdWords platform, and then it will again, as I said with Facebook, all the data will be displayed on AdWords in terms of performance, and that data is also replicated within the in the AppsFlyer platform. So that's why I was saying before, where you can make comparisons between the performance between partners like Google, Facebook, Twitter, Snap, etc.
Got it. And Eleanor is asking, what kind of settings do you provide for reattribution?
Settings for reattribution. So I mean, reattribution, if people aren't aware, is users who've installed and then uninstalled. So we have settings within. You can change the normally kind of industry standard is 90 days for reattributions. So what we're saying here is somebody who's installed and then uninstalled within 90 days. If that user then comes back, they won't be counted again. I mean, why should you pay for the same user again within a 3-month period? But then if that user uninstalls and reinstalls outside of the 90 days, then yes, you could potentially acquire that user again. but it's completely configurable within the AppsFlyer platform. There's a setting there that you can change, and it can be anything up to 2 years, and I think even beyond.
Great. So how can people, if people want to go deeper on this, or, oh no, hang on, we got another question. Hang on, here we go. It popped in there. Bola is asking how, oh, you mentioned, you were talking about using Braze earlier, the integration with them. How can we use the Braze integration for lifecycle engagement with users acquired through Facebook when they don't share user level data via AppsFlyer? And is there any workaround?
No, when it comes to Facebook, in terms of sharing user level, it's very straightforward. We don't share user level data. Facebook's user level data with other partners, and we don't advise clients to do that either. The integration with Braze, in terms of what we send to them, I think when you work with Braze, you have to have their SDK, so they're already collecting a lot of user level data as well. I'd have to go into a bit more detail on this, but yeah, I just want to be clear that when it comes to like workarounds when working with partners, there's certain partners. Facebook isn't the only one. There's other partners as well where they don't want their user level data to be shared, and it isn't AppsFlyer which is making that decision. It's the agreement that the client has with Facebook when they work with them, for example, and the same with other similar partners.
Great, and yeah, Naveen is echoing those sentiments about not sharing data. Naveen, I think we're going to have to get you to take part as a speaker in the next one, because you're always adding value in the comments. So thank you. Thanks for all the specific questions, everyone, and thanks, Richard, for answering those.
Okay.
How can, if people want to follow up any more with you, what's the best way, or they want to go deeper into this, what's the best way of doing that?
Yeah, I mean, if you, I don't know how it normally works on these. Do you supply?
You can share your email if you like, or is there a
yeah,
URL or?
Yeah, I mean, our website's really good. We have a support website which can answer a lot of questions. Right. But if they've got particular needs and they want to get a bit more deeper, then I'll give you obviously my contact details, and then you can arrange to pass it to them. Okay.
All right, great. Okay, so yeah, get in touch. If anyone wants an intro to Richard, then you can just email us at info@promotionsummit.com. Great. Well, thanks, Richard. That was great. Great workshop to have at the end of the week and go really deep on something like that. And I really enjoyed that. So thanks for joining us today.
Okay, yeah, thanks a lot for your time.
Great,
okay.
Great. We've got one more workshop coming up, guys. We're talking Apple search ads, and with Michael. He's a real sort of Apple search ads geek, and hopefully won't mind me saying that. And he's really a sort of pioneer in Apple search ads. So that's the one sort of bit of content coming up at 2:30. So hope you can join us for that. All right. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Thank you. Thanks, James. Bye.